Hey guys, Oscar Combs here with the ISO 9001 group, and today we're going to talk about ISO 9001-2015, the first amendment to ISO 9001-2015, and it's dealing with climate change. So the first amendment to ISO 9001-2015 was published in February 2024. So it's still relatively new. And would you believe it, that it deals with climate change? You may ask, what does climate change have to do with ISO 9001 or quality? Let's talk about it. So before we get into this amendment and the impacts of it, let's talk about what an amendment actually is. So an amendment is an addition or an alteration to an existing, already published standard, right? So in this case, ISO 9001-2015 has already been published. And so ISO is making an amendment, a change, or adding something to it. So this means that your organization or any organization that their quality management system is based upon ISO 9001, it means that these changes go into effect immediately upon the amendment being published. But fortunately for you, it's not a whole lot of changes, but there are some changes that you'll need to make, and we'll talk about it. Now, let's talk about who made this amendment. Why do we need an amendment, and who made this amendment to ISO 9001? It's like maybe they didn't have anything else better to do. Well, they did, and it's an organization or a committee that's part of ISO 9001. It's called a Technical Committee 176. So ISO Technical Committee 176, they are the committee that's responsible for authoring ISO 9001 and managing any updates or amendments to this standard. Now, me personally, I've been a member of ISO Technical Committee 176 since November of 2015. And basically the way you become a member is that you fill out an application. You know, quality professionals all over the world, they fill out an application, and then you have to pay a fee, and then you have to be actively involved in voting on changes, other members, other things that people are recommending on the committee. And so these are things that I do quite frequently as part of this committee. But anyone could technically be part of ISO Technical Committee 176. All you have to do is apply and pay your dues and then be involved, okay? So this committee saw fit to issue this First Amendment right now to address some climate change issues. Like we are all hearing about climate change more and more. And I don't know about you all, but I can definitely say I can see the impacts of climate change. So I don't want us to get too political in believing or not believing in climate change, but I'm just saying personally, I have personally experienced climate change and I do believe in it. So what does ISO 9001 have to do with climate change? ISO 9001 is a quality management system. So why are we talking about climate change? I'll tell you why. So, well, there are two clauses in ISO 9001-2015 where we need to consider the implications of climate change, right? So the amendment, the title of the amendment is Amendment 1, 2024, Climate Action Changes. So actions that you need to take, right? So in section 4.1, now Those that are familiar with ISO 9001 2015 know that section 4.1 is understanding the organization and its context. So internal and external issues that are impacting your organization. And section 4.2, understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties. What are interested parties? Those are parties that are impacted or perceive themselves to be impacted, or they are actually impacted by your organization, right? So let's talk a little bit more about 4.1 and 4.2 and how this relates to climate change. So in section 4.1, it says that organization and its context, it deals with the internal and external issues of your company that are relevant to your purpose and your strategic direction, and it affects your ability to achieve the intended results of your quality management system. Does that make sense? That makes sense to me. You know, when you first just kind of think about it, you're like, oh, climate change, what does that have to do with quality? But when you put this in perspective and you understanding or analyzing the internal and external issues, so climate change would be an external issue that could also be causing some internal issues, and those issues may affect your company's ability to achieve the intended results of what your quality management system is all about in the first place. So let's break this down a little bit more. So climate change can impact your operations at your company. Do you agree with that? I'm sure that you do. It can impact the working environment. It can impact the product. It can impact raw materials. It can impact the workers. It can impact your ability to transport your goods or your ability to get from point A to point B to provide your services. It can shut down your business. Climate change can shut down your business. So that's why climate change is relevant to ISO 9001, and specifically this clause 4.1, where it's dealing with the context of your organization and understanding the internal and external issues impacting your organization. Let's move on, talk about section 4.2, understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties. As I mentioned, those are entities or people that are impacted by your organization, or they perceive themselves to be impacted by your organization, or they are actually impacted. So who are some of these interested parties that could be impacted by climate change? Regulatory bodies, customers. What about suppliers? What about your employees, right? All of these are interested parties that may be impacted by your operation because your operation has been impacted by climate change. Totally makes sense, guys. So as you can see, this amendment is not specifically about climate change per se. It's about your organization assessing the impacts of climate change on your overall operations, and then also based upon the impact of climate change on your operations, how that may impact your interested parties. And once we understand that, then we can implement risk assessments or risk mitigations to reduce the negative impacts of climate change. That makes sense, guys. So let's not get too up in arms about, oh, what does climate change have to do with quality and ISO 9001 and it's just something else? And no, guys, this is real stuff. So let's talk about actions that you need to take right now. So overall, the actions that you need to take are relatively simple. The first thing that I would encourage you to do is to go to ISO.org. you can go and type in ISO 9001 Amendment 1 2024 Climate Action Changes, and it'll take you to the document. You can download it for free. You'll have to create an account, and you just download that amendment for free. I like to go to the source. I don't know about you guys. I don't go to Google and look at everything. If I know that this document is published by ISO, I'm going to go to ISO's website and get it from there. All right, so now you know where to get a copy of this amendment, the official amendment. Go to ISO.org. Your next step is to read it, right? And what it says is really simple in the language of this amendment. So for section 4.1, the amendment requires that you add this sentence at the end of subclause 4.1. The organization shall determine whether climate change is a relevant issue. So it's not telling you that climate change is a relevant issue for your company. It says that you need to determine that. So all you need to do is kind of like go to maybe your quality manual or wherever you talk about context of the organization. You can just literally type something like XYZ company has determined climate change is a relevant issue to its operations. Or you can even type something like XYZ company has determined that climate change is not a relevant issue to its operations. So it doesn't tell you which way to go, but you get to determine that. But it should be based upon an actual determination, not just because you're saying no because you don't want to include climate change into your assessment or into your quality system. So it should be an actual assessment based upon your actual operation. Now, if you consider the previous points that I just mentioned, come on now, climate change is relevant. Let's just be honest about it. Climate change is relevant. So I would imagine that any ISO auditor worth their weight would question why you would say climate change is not relevant to your operation. All right, let's move on to section 4.2. The amendment requires that you add a note. Now, a note is not a requirement. A note is simply a note. It's saying that you add a note at the end of 4.2 stating that relevant interested parties can have requirements related to climate change, that they can. Your customers may have requirements related to climate change. Regulatory bodies may have requirements related to climate change, right? So we need to be mindful of that. Let's do an actual assessment, and so that you can make that determination. Now, all you have to do is just update these sections of your documentation. Now, you may also want to update your risk register. So now, if you have determined that climate change is relevant and impacts or could potentially impact your interested parties, of course, you need to do risk assessment, which is going to allow you to implement or think about how you can mitigate those risks to your company and also to your interested parties. All right. Now, don't forget, when you update those documents, make sure that you follow your company's management of change process and also follow your company's document control procedures. All right, guys, that's the big amendment. So it's fairly minor, as I promised, but something bigger that is coming that you need to be mindful of, and it's coming pretty quickly, is that ISO 9001, the entire standard, will be revised in 2026. So I know it's only 2024, but guys, that's coming right around the corner, 2026. If you guys remember when we had to revise from 2008 to 2015, right? So we'll be doing that again. Now, we don't anticipate major things, but we do anticipate things like the climate change, sustainability kind of topics. I even hear that there could be some things in there about technology, artificial intelligence, things of this nature. Hey guys, it's just the way we're operating now, okay? That's just the environment that we operate in. And so we need to make adjustments. So embrace these changes. So that's coming. So stay tuned to our newsletter. We'll continue to keep you informed as more things develop on ISO 9001 2026. But you need to make changes based upon this amendment to climate change right now. So guys, I really hope that you found this video helpful. I ask that you write a comment below. What do you think about the ISO Technical Committee 176 making this amendment, including climate change? Do you agree with it? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Take a second and follow us, subscribe to our channel, like this video. Maybe you can share this video with someone or within your network. You know, other people need to know what's coming in regards to ISO 9001 and about this very important amendment, and they would appreciate you sharing this video. So guys, Oscar Combs here with the ISO 9001 group, helping organizations improve their operations and reduce their risk. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye now.